Let's open the case file. You and I need to cut through the online noise surrounding Nancy Guthrie's daughter, Annie, and her husband, Tomaso. Armchair detectives keep pushing the narrative that these two are secretly hiding something about the disappearance. But as investigators, we look at the facts. Police explicitly confirmed neither of them are actual suspects or persons of interest. Savannah stepped up, stating these baseless accusations are absolutely unbearable, just piling more trauma onto an already agonizing situation. The rumor mill started grinding when detectives hit Annie and Tomaso's property early in the case, bagging up potential evidence right off the bat. We even analyzed a surveillance photograph taken right outside Annie's property. An investigator was caught on camera, walking inside with a shoulder bag holding a forensic device gear, specifically designed to rip data from smartphones and SIM cards. And to make matters worse, agents were spotted on site, leaving the couple's home carrying out at least one sealed evidence bag for processing. It makes sense why the couple dropped off the radar. To break down these investigative tactics, veteran FBI Special Agent Jen Coffendaffer is reviewing the file with me. Jen, thanks for helping me analyze this. Glad to be here. All right, looking at the initial phase, this detail stands out. It really looked like the detectives running this case were zeroing in hard on Annie and Tomaso right from the jump. Why push so hard? Well, from a tactical standpoint, I wouldn't call it zeroing in. It is standard protocol. They were the last known contacts besides the porch guy. Naturally, that triggers a much closer investigative lens on their every move. You simply have to clear them. They saw her last, and importantly, they acted as her primary caretakers every day. They were the inner circle. In any missing persons case, we always start at the absolute center and work outward. Detectives had to execute a forensic deep dive to decisively prove whether the couple was tied to the disappearance or completely clean. Leaving no stone unturned is critical. So how does that mandate connect to the agent bringing in that digital extraction hardware? Why would pulling mobile data and hard drives be a top priority for the task force running this specific trace? We all notice those specific ICAC bags on scene. When those specialists show up, you know they are hunting digital footprints. Usually, we deploy them for immediate digital data recovery during rapid child abductions. Tactically, this scenario required the exact same rapid response just for an 84-year-old missing victim. So, the primary objective was to rip raw data off every device rapidly, which is exactly why ICAC got deployed. But assessing where we stand today, we see the precinct formally back off, clearly stating they are no longer actively pursuing Annie and Tomaso. They are officially cleared. Yet wild online speculation refuses to die down, which has essentially forced the couple completely into hiding to avoid the public backlash. Why the intense fallout? Look at the optics for them. They've had a massive target painted on their backs since the first 48 hours of this missing person inquiry, which from a profiling perspective directly stemmed from that heavy tactical presence swarming their front yard early on. Detectives executed multiple property searches and repeatedly locked down the surrounding block to conduct standard neighborhood canvassing. The unit was obviously applying maximum pressure following protocol to either definitively rule them out or build a solid case against them. Seizing their vehicle for an extended period of time threw massive fuel onto the public suspicion fire, raising immediate red flags. Forensics eventually released it, but they had completely dismantled the interior, meaning it took weeks just to rebuild the car's cabin. Here is where you and I have to look at the human cost. Could you handle an angry mob constantly analyzing your every move? While tracking their digital footprint, I noticed Tomaso Cioni used to be listed on the staff directory at the local school he works at. That listing is suddenly gone. Obviously, from an analytical standpoint, there are multiple variables behind that removal. The administration might have simply updated their domain, or more likely they scrubbed his name to shield the campus from dangerous online harassment. When a true crime mob decides someone is guilty, they completely ignore the actual police reports and forensic evidence clearing those individuals. That translates to severe real-world stalking, aggressively tracking Annie and Tomaso and creating massive security risks for everyone in their orbit. From a pure threat assessment angle, going off the grid was their safest play. Now, shifting focus to the Pima County Sheriff, Chris Nanos. The fact he froze out the Guthrie family, does that trigger any investigative red flags for you? Absolutely. Listen, when you examine the hierarchy, this falls entirely under his local jurisdiction. He is absolutely the primary adjudicating authority steering this entire criminal probe right now. Unless forensics proves Nancy was transported across state lines or the international border, ultimate operational control belongs entirely to his department. So you and I have to ask ourselves, why would the lead investigator completely ice out the victim's family, punting that critical communication entirely over to the FBI? Instead, you and I are digging into this investigation today, mainly rooted on the constant issues swirling around Sheriff Chris Nanos. We've all seen the headlines flooding the law enforcement news cycle for weeks on end now. As an analyst, that is exactly the frustration I am tracking across the true crime community. Look at the timeline. We are 109 days into this missing person case. Suddenly, he starts handing tasks to the FBI, finally surrendering some of his tight operational control. Now, federal agents are finally permitted to speak with the victim's family. And reviewing the file, the public consensus is clear. If you had just deployed federal resources from day one, there might have been a much higher chance of actually locating Nancy Guthrie alive. What does my analysis reveal about that anger directed at Sheriff Nanos? Honestly, the outrage is completely justified. Anyone reviewing this case file asks the exact same question. Why wasn't the FBI fully integrated into this search from the very beginning? I have no doubt initial communications happened. He admits that, but federal agents couldn't legally deploy their full forensic resources to join the investigation until day 4, at least according to intelligence from Kash Patel. From an investigative standpoint, that is a massive operational failure, considering they are the premier forensic resource. They have the best DNA labs, the most boots on the ground, and countless specialized agents ready to assist a local department. None of this protocol makes sense. The Bureau's elite victim witness program could have been immediately deployed to support the grieving family members. All of those critical federal true crime resources were deliberately blocked from the Guthrie family until much later. Here is where you and I need to look closer. Sheriff Nanos claims we are nearing a major DNA evidence breakthrough, but my records show he's been repeating that for over a month. Does the evidence suggest local authorities are genuinely any closer to the major breakthrough that Nanos keeps promising? Technically, the passage of time does inch an investigation forward. Forensic scientists are actively working in the lab analyzing the hair strands they collected. And I strongly suspect they are processing other critical evidence too. As an investigator, I refuse to accept that this is the only DNA material spanning 5 distinct labs, especially considering that Florida facility held the evidence for weeks before any transfer. It finally reached Quantico. Analytically speaking, yes, any active day spent working to solve a cold case physically pushes the timeline further down the road toward an eventual arrest. But examining his statements, I honestly view his remarks as a strategic brush-off. It rarely felt like a genuine indicator that they were on the brink of solving it. It read more like a public relations line. Sure, we are getting closer. Now, shifting to the political jurisdiction side, let's apply our investigative lens to another major factor here. Sheriff Nanos recently faced intense institutional backlash directly from the Pima County Board of Supervisors. One of those acting supervisors actually introduced a formal motion to strip Nanos of his badge. The board ultimately conducted a vote ending 4-0, with one abstention deciding against vacating his law enforcement position entirely. Their internal probe examined his command leadership and his toxic relationships with department personnel. They audited his department finances and scrutinized how he allegedly mismanaged past criminal investigations. Given his questionable tactical conduct during this missing person case, how did he actually survive that? I dug into the county statutes. After extensive research, the bottom line is clear that Oversight Board holds absolutely zero legal authority to remove a sitting sheriff. They could only execute a legal removal if he outright refused to answer their formal inquiries or failed to supply the requested documents within the deadline. But he submitted a 22-page dossier addressing every single question the board formulated, and he filed that report well inside the allotted legal time frame. Because of that specific compliance, their hands were completely tied. He remains a legally protected elected official. Elected officials operate under different rules than appointed ones. they are shielded by the public vote. That is the foundation of the law. As an analyst, I see the danger in a board overriding the direct electoral will of Pima County voters. And that is exactly how the county legal counsel views him. He won that election 2 years ago, stripping the board of the power to undo it. So what do you and I make of this file? The investigation continues, but the facts speak for themselves. Keep analyzing the evidence.